All right.
I know.
We're going to turn now to the Delta plane flipover crash. A little bit more on it. We touched on it earlier. An investigation is underway this morning after that Delta Airlines plane crashed at Canada's Toronto Pearson International Airport, overturning upon landing and injuring at least 18 people on board. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest on that.
An unimaginable scene at Toronto's Pearson International Airport.
Oh, no.
We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down.
Video obtained by TMZ shows the moment Delta Airlines Flight 4819 crashed into the runway and overturned.
The aircraft is upside down and burning.
Video posted on social media shows passengers evacuating the plane, operated by regional jet company Endeavour Air.
Drop it. Come on.
One passenger filming the moment he jumped out of the emergency exit onto a tarmac covered in patches of snow.
Yo, I was just on this plane.
All 76 passengers and 4 crew members are accounted for. Paramedic services saying at least 18 were injured, including a child. 2 people were airlifted to a nearby trauma center.
There was no loss of life. And this is in due part to our heroic and trained professionals.
Bystanders filming giant clouds of black smoke as first responders quickly covered the plane in foam to prevent flames from spreading. Officials say it's too early to speculate about the cause of the crash, but the weather conditions are coming into sharp focus. At around the time the plane landed, wind gusts reached close to 40 miles per hour amid blowing snow and negative 2-degree wind chill. It comes amid some confusion over the presence of crosswinds, which can impact plane landings. Toronto Pearson Fire Chief saying the runway was dry and there were no crosswind conditions at the time. But according to aviation tracking website Flight Radar 24, weather advisories indicated a gusting crosswind. Monday's accident involved a CRJ-900 plane, popular for short-haul flights.
The next thing I saw is basically a plane, the CRJ plane that basically flipped on the runway.
The regional jet is a bigger version of the same model involved in the deadly collision in Washington, D.C. between a military helicopter and an American Airlines flight just 20 days ago. That crash, the deadliest in nearly 25 years, killed 67 people.
Or Joe, another scary scene.
Boy, another scary scene. And we had Kelly O'Donnell reporting earlier this morning, Mike Barnicle, about concerns about FAA cuts. The Washington Post reporting this, that the Federal Aviation Administration has let go hundreds of technicians and engineers just weeks after a midair collision. Miles from the White House, it killed 67 people, eliciting promises from Trump officials to improve air safety, workers said in interviews. So firing people in the FAA after that crash, of course, after the crash in Philadelphia, growing concerns. But, you know, it's so interesting that it's this whole idea. We're going to take the bureaucracy down to the stubs. We're gonna go in and we're gonna just tear things apart and ask questions later. And the unintended consequences. There's just no doubt there are going to be unintended consequences that are going to be very bad if they don't do it in a measured, intelligent way. This isn't Twitter. This isn't X. This isn't some company you go through and just wipe things out. We're talking here about air safety for our families. We're talking about safety for the food our families eat. We're talking about safe air that our families breathe, the water that our families drink. We're talking even, forget about pandemics. Let's just talk about epidemics. Tracing a flu epidemic, getting information, gathering it all together, making sure that we all have the information that we need on air, food, and other safety. So, yeah, there's waste, fraud, and abuse. I've spent my entire life talking about it. Yeah, we need to balance a budget. This doesn't do it. This doesn't come close to doing it. We're $36 trillion in debt. They won't find $1 trillion of damage here, but they are going to cause a hell of a lot of damage and make Americans less safe if they don't do this the right way, if they don't do this the legal way, if they don't do this in a way that's transparent.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it feeds into the conversation that began at the top of this hour, Joe. What's happening to the federal government? I mean, people make fun of the federal government. It's too big. It's too wasteful. Anybody can find waste in the federal government. There's no doubt about that. But my sad prediction is that sooner rather than later, people's Social Security benefits will be slow in getting to them. Medicare and Medicaid won't work as well as it did prior to their looking at these departments and going in at these departments. And the federal government will look no longer like it does now. It won't be as effective, even though people think it's inefficient, and there are a lot of inefficiencies in it. But something's going to collapse here. And that's where the Democrats ought to be focused, on fighting back. They ought to be out there in the country talking to people who are most likely to be damaged by the inadequacies brought by the Musk Doge committee, whatever they're doing in these departments. They will be the most damaged more quickly than other people will be. Farmers will be damaged. Poor people will be damaged. Middle-class people with children will be damaged. And then there's the threat of how many people will refuse to get vaccines for their children because of all the contentiousness and all the publicity surrounding vaccines. How many people will let their children get measles, which is an epidemic now apparently in parts of Texas? All of these things will come home to roost. That's the Democrats' best bet. It's a sad bet, but it's their best bet.
Yeah,
makes sense. Well, their best bet is to stop that from happening, to do whatever they can to keep Americans safe. This is not about politics. This is about keeping Americans safe. Whether it's when they get on a plane, it's about keeping them safe. Whether you're talking about the food that they eat, whether you're talking about safe for the air that our children breathe or the water that we all drink. I mean, that's what needs to be taken care of. Republicans, independents, Democrats alike need to focus on that. And this whole idea, by the way, it's nonsense. When you're hearing we have to do this to save money because we have to balance the budget. There's a $36 trillion debt. I can tell you 80% of that, 85% of that does not come from anything that Doge is touching. That 85% comes from defense spending, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the debt. All that makes up 85%. Government is about, all these things we're talking about takes about 10%, maybe 12% of the budget. And then you're cutting around the edges here and you're doing things, again, not in a meaningful, thoughtful way, but a way where you're just going in and, again, just ripping things away. This would be like a hotel getting bed bugs on the 11th floor and deciding they were going to burn down the whole hotel instead of changing the sheets and taking out the beds on the 11th floor and changing them. There's a smart way to do this. It needs to be done. The federal government needs to be more efficient. Its systems need to be updated to the 21st century, to 21st century standards. And we've said it here for years now. There's some computers from the 1980s at the Pentagon. So we need this updating. It needs to be done, though, in a meaningful, thoughtful way that doesn't make Americans less safe. And everybody's sitting here talking about what the Democrats need to do. Democrats need to fight, Mika, to protect Americans' safety, to keep them safe.
Yeah, and I think there's a bigger conversation on why things are being done this way that we'll have as well.
It's to they mean to burn down the hotel.
Right.
The idea is to destroy the administrative state or the deep state, and so this is a feature, not a bug, as far as they're concerned. Right,
or a bed bug. Chris Matthews, thank you very much for coming on this morning. We'll see you soon.